It was a beautiful summer day in 2001. Air Transat Flight 236 was ready to go. The plane, an Airbus A330, sat on the runway in Toronto, Canada. Its destination was Lisbon, Portugal. On board were over 300 passengers and crew. They were excited to start their vacations. The mood was light, families chatted, friends laughed. The flight crew prepared for a routine transatlantic journey. Captain Robert Piche and First Officer Dirk de Jager went through their pre-flight checks. Everything looked good. The engines hummed to life. The plane taxied down the runway and lifted into the clear blue sky. Below, the lights of Toronto twinkled as the plane climbed to its cruising altitude. Passengers settled in for the long flight ahead. They read books, watched movies, or drifted off to sleep, unaware of the drama that was about to unfold. The first few hours of the flight were uneventful. The plane soared smoothly over the Atlantic Ocean. Flight attendants served drinks and snacks. Passengers relaxed and enjoyed the in-flight entertainment. But high above the ocean, a silent problem was brewing. A problem that would soon turn this routine flight into a fight for survival. As Flight 236 cruised over the vast expanse of the Atlantic, the first sign of trouble appeared. A warning light flickered on the instrument panel. It was a fuel indicator, suggesting a discrepancy between the fuel gauges. The pilots, experienced aviators, weren't immediately alarmed. They ran through their checklists and contacted their operations control center in Montreal. The initial assessment seemed routine, a possible gauge malfunction. However, as the flight progressed, the pilots noticed something unusual. The fuel level in the right wing tank was dropping faster than it should have. They consulted their manuals and ran calculations. Something didn't add up. The fuel consumption was abnormally high. Captain Piche and First Officer de Jager began to suspect a fuel leak, a much more serious situation. The pilots contacted the operations center again, this time with growing concern. They requested a change of course to Lias Air Base in the Azores, a group of islands in the middle of the Atlantic. Lias was the closest suitable airport should they need to make an emergency landing. The atmosphere in the cockpit became tense. The pilots knew they had a problem, but the full extent of the situation was still unclear. The situation escalated rapidly. The fuel level in the right wing tank continued to plummet at an alarming rate. The pilots' suspicions were confirmed. There was definitely a fuel leak, and it was serious. They declared a fuel emergency with air traffic control, a distress call that sent a chill down the spines of everyone listening. The race was on. Flight 236 was now in a desperate battle against time and gravity. The pilots calculated their remaining fuel and the distance to Lias Air Base. The numbers were not encouraging. They were losing fuel at an alarming rate, and the Azores were still hundreds of miles away. The mood in the cockpit was tense but focused. Captain Piche, a former glider pilot, knew that every drop of fuel was precious. He adjusted the plane's altitude and speed, trying to conserve as much fuel as possible. The fate of the flight and the lives of everyone on board rested on his experience and skill. Then, the unthinkable happened. The right engine sputtered and died. Silence. The humming of the engines, a constant companion throughout the flight, was gone, replaced by an eerie quiet. Passengers, accustomed to the reassuring drone of the engines, became alarmed. The silence was deafening, a stark reminder of their precarious situation. Minutes later, the left engine also went silent. Flight 236 was now gliding, its fate hanging in the balance. The plane, once a symbol of modern aviation, was now a giant metal glider, at the mercy of the wind and the skill of its pilots. The situation was dire. They were thousands of feet above the Atlantic Ocean, with no engine power and rapidly diminishing hope. Inside the cabin, panic began to set in. Passengers cried and prayed. The reality of the situation sunk in. They were stranded, gliding silently over the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean, their lives hanging by a thread. The flight attendants, trained for emergencies, worked diligently to keep the passengers calm and prepared for whatever lay ahead. Section 5. A Glimmer of Hope, the Azores on the horizon. Just when all hope seemed lost, a faint glimmer appeared on the horizon. Through the cockpit window, the pilots spotted a faint outline in the distance. Land. It was the island of Terceira in the Azores, their intended emergency landing spot. A wave of relief, mixed with trepidation, washed over the pilots. They had made it within sight of land, but their ordeal was far from over. The plane was still gliding, losing altitude rapidly. The pilots knew they wouldn't have enough altitude to circle the airport and attempt a normal landing. They were going to have to make a risky, one-shot approach. As the plane descended, the pilots fought to maintain control. The lack of engine power made maneuvering the aircraft incredibly difficult. They had one chance, and one chance only, to land the plane safely. Section 6. Preparing for the impossible. A difficult landing awaits. Inside the cabin, the flight attendants prepared the passengers for an emergency landing. They demonstrated the brace position, ensuring everyone knew what to do on impact. The mood was tense, a mixture of fear and hope. Passengers clung to their loved ones, whispering prayers and words of encouragement. The runway at Lajes Air Base came into view. It seemed to be rushing towards them, a thin strip of concrete surrounded by the vastness of the Atlantic. Captain Piche, his face etched with concentration, made a series of sharp turns, maneuvering the plane towards the runway. The plane was approaching too fast, too high. The pilots knew that a smooth landing was highly unlikely. They were prepared for the worst, bracing themselves for a bumpy, potentially dangerous impact. Section 7, Touchdown, the Azores and the relief of solid ground. With a deafening screech of tires, Flight 236 slammed onto the runway. The impact jolted the passengers, throwing them against their seat belts. The plane bounced once, twice, then screeched again as the pilots fought to maintain control. Sparks flew as the landing gear scraped against the tarmac. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the plane came to a stop. Silence. The only sound was the relieved gasps and sobs of the passengers. They had made it. Against all odds, Flight 236 had landed safely. Relief washed over the cabin. Passengers cheered, cried, and hugged each other, grateful to be alive. The flight attendants, their faces pale but composed, helped to calm the passengers and prepare them for evacuation. Section 8. Miracle on the runway. The aftermath and investigation. The emergency slides were deployed and the passengers and crew evacuated the aircraft. They were met by emergency personnel, who whisked them away to safety. Miraculously, despite the harrowing landing, there were no fatalities. A few passengers sustained minor injuries, but most walked away from the ordeal relatively unscathed. The news of Flight 236's miraculous landing spread like wildfire. The world was astonished. How could a plane gliding for hundreds of miles with no engine power land safely? It seemed impossible, yet it had happened. The story captivated the world, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the skill of the pilots. An investigation was launched to determine the cause of the fuel leak. The investigation revealed a series of errors, both human and mechanical, that had led to the near disaster. A faulty hydraulic pump had caused a fuel leak in the right engine. A maintenance error had exacerbated the problem. The investigation also highlighted the incredible skill and composure of the pilots who had averted a major tragedy. Section 9. Heroes of the Hour, the skill and courage of the crew. Captain Robert Piche and First Officer Dirk de Jager were hailed as heroes. Their calm demeanor, quick thinking, and exceptional piloting skills had saved the lives of everyone on board. They had faced an unprecedented situation and emerged victorious. The flight attendants were also praised for their bravery and professionalism. They had remained calm under immense pressure, reassuring passengers and ensuring their safety during the emergency landing. Their actions were instrumental in preventing panic and ensuring an orderly evacuation. The story of Flight 236 became a testament to the importance of training, experience, and composure under pressure. It showed that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, human skill and determination can prevail. Section 10. Lessons learned: Air Transat Flight 236's impact. The near disaster of Flight 236 had a profound impact on the aviation industry. The investigation's findings led to changes in aircraft design, maintenance procedures, and pilot training. The incident served as a wake-up call, highlighting the importance of safety protocols and the need for constant vigilance in the aviation industry. The story of Flight 236 became a case study in aviation schools around the world, a reminder of the importance of quick thinking, teamwork, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. The legacy of Flight 236 lived on, not just in the annals of aviation history, but in the hearts and minds of those who had experienced the harrowing flight firsthand. Section 11. a story of survival inspiration in the face of disaster. The story of Air Transat Flight 236 is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail. It is a story of human resilience, courage, and the importance of never giving up. The passengers and crew of Flight 236 faced their fears and emerged from the ordeal stronger, their lives forever changed by their shared experience. Their story continues to inspire, reminding us that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, the human spirit can triumph.